I will begin by reading the Indigenous Land Use Statement. We acknowledge the land which we occupy today as the traditional home of the Nisenan, Maidu, and Miwok tribal nations. These sovereign people have been the caretakers of this land since time immemorial. Despite centuries of genocide and occupation, the Nisenan, Maidu, and Miwok continue as vibrant and resilient tribes and bands, both federally recognized and unrecognized. We take this opportunity to acknowledge the generations that have gone before, as well as the present day Nisenan, Maidu, and Miwok people. I hereby call this meeting to order at 10:31 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Brett, if you could begin the roll call.
All right. President Burrows.
Present.
Present. VP Dominique.
Present.
Present. Director of Public Relations, Love.
Present.
Present. Director of Finance, Huynh. Present. Acknowledged. Legislative Analyst, Velarde Birch.
Present.
Present. Senator Ng.
Present.
Present. CAEB Rep, Mark. Looks like he's checking in. Mark, hi. Present. Present. Right on. Senator Gorman. Absent. And Director of Legislative Affairs, Garcia. They might be at General Assembly.
I was just gonna say, I think General Assembly starts today, and I'm checking my email. I have a message from Nick on the 23rd saying that he would be out. Let's see. Both the 25th and today. So Nick is also excused. Sorry.
Okay. All right, so you have 7 out of 9, so quorum has been met.
Thank you. All right, with quorum met, we will move on to adoption of the agenda. If there are no objections or amendments, today's agenda will be adopted. Seeing and hearing none, the agenda is adopted. We will now move on to approval of the minutes. I believe minutes went out in an email from Brett either yesterday or the day before. There are no objections or amendments. We will approve the minutes. All right, seeing and hearing none, we will now move on to Chair's message. So good morning, everyone. It's the end of week 11. As mentioned a moment ago, the SSCCC General Assembly begins, I believe, today and continues through this weekend. Yesterday was Cesar Chavez Day and also Transgender Day of Visibility. According to Egypt's National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics, Ramadan begins tomorrow. April is Autism Awareness or Autism Acceptance Month and also Arab American Heritage Month. Wednesday, April 6th is the virtual career fair, which will be held via handshake. Career events continue throughout the month of April with workshops for resumes, interviews, and networking, among other topics. Next week, there will be a number of info sessions for the Los Rios Community College District Study Abroad program. Registration deadlines are coming up for cultural graduation celebrations. Next Thursday is the deadline for both excellence and achievement for students of African descent and also for the Latinx honoring our students ceremony. And then I also wanted to share with you that the student art competition is open and accepting entries. The deadline to submit your art is April 22nd at 11:59 p.m. And finally, I wanted to congratulate our own Director of Finance, Brianna Huynh, winner of the Phi Theta Kappa All California Award. So congrats, Brianna, and thank you for your work to bring the PTK chapter back to ARC. So that's all I have for Chair's message. I will now hand it over to Brett for Advisor's message.
All right, thank you. Aloha, happy Friday, happy April. There's only a month left, y'all. So I think our last meeting, I don't have the calendar in front of me. I want to say it's like the first Friday in May is your last meeting. I'll send that out all out. Technically, your terms end June 30th, but you don't meet when there's no school, and we don't meet during summer school. So the Friday before finals start is technically your last meeting. So thank you as always for showing up every Friday and showing up at committee meetings and councils and club meetings. It's not easy to do in this remote world. So for those of you that are continuing to do that, thank you. Just a few things. So election petitions closed Monday night. I think a lot of students waited to the last minute, which normally I get frustrated about, but this is actually a good thing. So we had 10 folks that have put their name in to run for office. I can't share those names yet. You'll see them shortly on a voter guide. We do have someone running for president, so that's always good news. I know none of them. So there will be orientation for them next week. And I'll send you all the times. You're not required to attend, but if you want to come through and just kind of share your experiences being on a virtual board, I'm more than happy to let you speak to incoming folks on just kind of what to expect. We still don't know if fall is going to be on ground or not. The big push is to be on ground, but there's still a lot of logistics to figure out. So more to come on that, but I'll send out the Zoom links for next week. They're meeting, they have to attend one session, and it's either Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday after Senate. They have to attend just one. They're at different times to accommodate different needs and schedules, but if you want to come through and share, that would be awesome. For those of you that shared out to your classes, to your friends on Instagram, social media, thank you. I really appreciate it. Mark, I saw your question in the chat. I can tell you 2 people applied for CAEB, 8 for Senate. We also had a student trustee application. So I forwarded that on to the district. So we'll see how that turns out. So that's elections. Just a couple updates. Stacey mentioned General Assembly already. They are doing it here in Sacramento at that Holiday Inn by the Golden One Center. Sylvia is your delegate. I registered them last week. Hopefully they got the registration information. They're voting via Zoom. Sac City is attending, but I think the other campuses in our district are doing the virtual route. Just based on from other advisors, I'm on an email listserv, and quite a few colleges are attending. And I'm bummed that you all don't get to experience that. It's always cool to meet students from across the state and pick their brains and what they're working on. And it's just a cool networking session. So that's just kind of our reality right now. But I hope as you continue on, if you're transferring or if you want to come back next year, that you get to experience that, because it's really powerful and it's a great leadership opportunity. A few updates. Let's see, I wrote down some notes. They lifted the vaccine mandate to register for classes. So in the past, you had to have your cleared status in order to sign up for a class on ground. They've lifted that. But once you enroll in the class, you have 2 weeks to show that you've been cleared or vaccinated, or else they'll drop you. So it gives people at least an opportunity to sign up for classes. But at the end of the day, as far as I know, for fall and for summer, you still have to be vaccinated or cleared. That may change, but as of April 1st, that's kind of the policy. So FYI on that. I know most of you are transferring, but for the folks that are returning for summer or for fall, just keep that in mind. We talked a lot about home bases this spring. If you're on ground, stop by your home base. Check in with them, say hello, let them know that you're on Student Senate. I think that's important. They are trying very hard to get students back on ground. There's only so much they can do, right? They're there on ground, but students got to come to them. So, if you're on campus, stop by with your designated home base and just say hello. They would love to talk to you all. I meet with them every week, and they just love when students stop by. So That's that. We talked about GA. The last thing I have here on my notes, April 15th, 2 weeks from today, is a Los Rios recognized holiday. So there'll be no meeting. So after next Friday's meeting, you can start your spring break. But there is a meeting next week. But April 15th, there'll be no meetings. So with that, that's all I have. It's a big sports weekend this weekend. If some of you don't know, I love professional wrestling, and tomorrow is WrestleMania. So I know you'll all be excited to watch that. I'm a nerd. I'll be the first to admit. So with that, I will pass it back to you, Stacey. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. And I'm really glad to hear that so many students put in applications to run for office. I'm a little concerned about that, so it's really exciting. I can also share with the board that we might have a home-based coach visiting next Friday. We're still working that out if that's going to work for her schedule. And then I did hear that the STEM Homebase is operating remotely until further notice, and I have no further details on that, when that'll change or why that is. So I don't know if any other home bases are doing that right now. All right, with that, we will now move on to public comment. This time is reserved for members of the public to address ASB Senate on issues not already appearing on the agenda. A limit of 2 minutes per speaker shall be observed with a maximum of 4 minutes per topic. No discussion is allotted on public comment. The law does not permit any action to be taken or extended discussion of any items not on the agenda. The ASB Senate may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed. However, for further information, please contact the ASB Senate President for the item of discussion to be placed on a future agenda. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment at this time? Seeing and hearing none, we will move on to appointments and swearing in, of which there are none. I see that I allotted 5 minutes on the agenda for this, but we do not have any appointments this week. So we will move on to old business. Is there a motion for item 9.1?
I make a motion to discuss item 9.1, student anti-racism training roundtable.
Is there a second?
I second.
With the motion made and seconded, Angie, this defaults back to you since you made the motion, or you can defer to the chair if you wish.
I will defer to the chair.
Okay, thank you. So this is just following up on recent ASB Senate report that was made to the board during board member reports and announcements. So I've just allotted this time on the agenda today for a roundtable discussion for all of us to share ideas and research options for student anti-racism training workshops, either virtually or in person. I did a little bit of research between meetings and found that most bystander intervention programs that are offered on college and university campuses tend to focus on sexual harassment and Title IX. There's a program at USC. There's a program at Northwestern University, which I can put in the chat if anyone is interested. But again, those largely focus on sexual harassment, bystander intervention. There are also some organizations. One of them is Right to Be, formerly known as Holla Back, and then also Step Up program that both offer facilitation, training and presentations, virtual workshops, things like that, either for corporate groups or for nonprofit organizations, for students, things like that. And so I will put those in the chat right now. But I also just want to keep the floor open for any of you to share your ideas or thoughts you have on this topic.
Sure.
Recognized.
Yeah, I was kind of doing some research too before this meeting. I was thinking like if we could have some kind of like anti-racism seminar, even if we do have it just because we have so many classes on ground, even if we do have it virtually, I think that it could be really helpful. I think though that I don't know how possible this is, but if we could make it maybe like mandatory for student employees. I feel like that would be really helpful. I'm a student employee who's on ground a lot right now. And I just think that it could be really helpful to have that kind of bystander training, because we are some of the only folks that are on ground, in at least in my section of the world. Because I know there are a lot of STEM students on ground, but I'm in the language of people home base, and there are not a lot of students on ground. I feel like it would be really helpful for student staff to have that kind of training, because we are, especially in the home bases, like we are kind of like that front, like up in the front and dealing with students and all of that. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Thank you for that, Angie. Brett, I wanted to ask, who might we share that idea with? Would that be the VP of Student Services or someone in HR?
Either the VP of Student Services or the VP of Administration, Ku Bang, because they handle all their office handles all the intent, paperwork, hiring forms. So that could be a place to start. I would say to Angie's point, just real quick, I think formally, if the board wanted to do that, writing a resolution stating that, and then that's how you formally send it to administration, right? That Student Senate has discussed this. This is what we think. Here's why. And I can send out, I don't think this board has done a resolution, but I can send out some previous ones or sample ones if you want to go that route. But I think that's the formal way to do it. You could still reach out to admin ahead of time, let them know this is being discussed before you actually write it, just so it's on the radar. But that would be the steps.
Thank you, Brett. That makes a lot of sense. No, we have not had any resolutions. We've had advocacy funding bills only. So that would be a great opportunity for 1 or 2 members of the board to co-author a support resolution.
Chair,
Recognized.
I would be willing to assist with that resolution.
Sounds good. All right. If any members of the board are interested in co-authoring legislative analyst Polarity Birch's resolution, please reach out to her directly. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas?
Chair,
Recognized.
I just thought it was interesting that when we as a general, when we talk generally when we talk about racism in Sacramento, it doesn't seem like anyone ever acknowledges how racist Sacramento is. Like, why is Sacramento fundamentally this racist place in what's considered the most liberal state in the nation? So I just thought that was something to point out, because I just think it's interesting that living here in Sacramento, we kind of ignore the racism that we see. Like, as one person put it, that this is like a little slice of Mississippi right in the middle of the most liberal place in the USA, Sacramento itself. And just that, why is that? It stems back to a lot of issues from probably the early gold mining days. But I just think it's kind of interesting that we touch on the racism, but I feel like people are never acknowledging why is Sacramento this racist place. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that experience. One idea might be to reach out to historians on campus or at Sacramento State and share that experience with them and ask for their insight on why that may be. The history of the gold rush could certainly be one possibility for sure. Any other comments, questions, ideas?
I have one more comment, sorry, Chair. It's just, to me, I grew up in the Bay Area and then I lived in Hawaii, so I haven't lived that many places. And here in California, I never thought I would experience a place where people are openly racist and it's accepted. There's literally a man that lives in my neighborhood that has a huge swastika on his chest. and like SAC, like SAC, which like the prison gang stands for Soldiers of Aryan Culture, and they call it Sac County. And that's like just something for me is pretty radical, because I never thought I'd experience that, like growing up in California.
Thank you for sharing that experience. My own experience as a transgender white person who's lived in California their entire life is I've lived rural and I've lived urban, and it's changed over time. The openness and the acceptability has changed over time. And it would also be interesting to kind of analyze what those reasons might be. Other comments, questions, ideas? And I noticed Brett included in the chat a title that can be found at ARC Library that explores the topic, called Sacramento Renaissance.
Sorry, Chair. I'm a huge book nerd when I'm not watching wrestling, and that is one of the best books I've read on like Sacramento history. It just explores like how neighborhoods were formed, and then after World War II, how those neighborhoods were radically changed. I don't want to give too much away, but it's a powerful book. And if you grew up in this area or you know the areas of Sacramento, I think y'all will enjoy it. So don't all rush to the library today at once, but it's really good.
Thank you for that book recommendation. I'm gonna have to add that to my summer reading list. Just want to make sure I keep an open floor, give you plenty of time. So if you have a chance, I want to encourage you to check out organizations, maybe do a little of your own background research. And as Angie has mentioned, she's going to be developing a support resolution for student employees, or to bring an event to campus in general. So I encourage you to explore options and to collaborate on a project so that we can make a difference for our campus community. Just leave the floor open for another few seconds. If there are any other questions, thoughts, comments, ideas. All right, seeing and hearing none, we will now move on to item 9.2. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to discuss item 9.2, hold space events and community support.
Is there a second?
I second.
With the motion made and seconded, Angie, this goes back to you as the motion maker, although you can also defer to the chair.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get some clarity. So we're talking about maybe setting up some like confidential support in light of like the holding space. I attended the holding space, both of the holding spaces, the one that happened on Friday and the one that happened on that Monday. I think that there is some room there for things to happen and for things to kind of be more regular as far as all of that goes. With regards to my experience there, I had a couple of students reach out to me after the Monday holding space event, to just talk and connect and ask what we offer here along in the vein of support and community. And it's honestly something that I know that I've been struggling with as well coming here. I started here during the pandemic. I came from, my experience is very different from Dominique's, in that I came from not far from here, but an extremely, extremely, extremely openly racist place. And so one of the first things that I always do when I get into any kind of new space is like seek out my community first, because that is what makes me feel safe. And I've had a hard time finding that here at ARC. And part of that is just because of the pandemic and things all being virtual and hard to locate those resources when everything's virtual, but also not updated. And I think that maybe if we had like more regular, maybe even monthly, like holding space events, not even just to talk through racial trauma, but to also kind of like create ways to build community here at ARC, to help people locate their communities here at ARC, and kind of like build that sense of like safety and community. I think that that would be really helpful.
Thank you for that, Angie. And thank you for attending those events. If there's anything else you'd like to share, confidentially, of course, not, revealing the identity of any participants, but any other experiences are more than welcome. All right, the floor is open. If anyone would like to suggest any ideas, share thoughts or questions.
Chair?
Recognized.
I just think that that's a really great idea, Angie, and that ARC should definitely do that. I think if somehow we could like start that, I think a place where people could go and talk, if it's just monthly or weekly, with just like an ongoing meeting for students, I think that would be a really great, just a really great place where people know they could go. So I definitely support that. That's all.
Thank you, Dominique. So one possibility would be to form an ad hoc committee to develop peer support on campus, or to develop support events in collaboration with counseling or other departments. Another option might be to, again, write a support resolution and take it to administration for further action. We may also be able to generate a report or recommendation for next year's board to also continue following up on anything that this board begins to do.
Sure.
Recognized.
So as I was saying earlier too, like I did do a little bit of research before this meeting, and I noticed that like a lot of the things like confidential support teams and things like that were geared towards like sexual harassment and Title IX things. I don't know how difficult it would be to set up something like that for other forms of social violence, but I think that if we could have something like that or some kind of structure in place on campus to create that confidential support for students who are dealing with this stuff, racism, or, even like misgendering here on campus, which I've seen a lot, unfortunately. I feel like it would be really helpful for our students if we could figure out a way to do that. I know that we do have like weave advocates and stuff like that for people who are experiencing like sexual harassment and domestic violence and those sorts of things, and like all the Title IX stuff. But I had a really hard time locating anything like that for other forms of harassment and those sorts of things.
Thank you, Angie. Thank you for doing that research and sharing those outcomes with us. So again, if any members of the board wish to write a support resolution, please reach out to me so that I can add that to an agenda. And also consider whether or not to form an ad hoc committee for a subgroup of this board to work on this issue specifically and explore options for forming a support program for students throughout the remainder of our term, and perhaps generate a report of recommendations for the next board. I want to leave the floor open a little longer in case anyone else has questions, ideas, or would like to make a motion for an ad hoc committee.
Chair,
Recognized.
I have a question. How many meetings do we have left?
Excellent
I-
question. So we have the meeting in 1 week on the 8th, and then the 22nd, the 29th, and the 6th. So there are 4 meetings remaining for our term of service.
Okay.
Chair.
Recognized.
I would just add that typically there's also, when things are running smoothly, like a transition meeting. I know this board didn't get one from last year's board, but typically it was on ground, and we'd have like an end of the year party, and we'd acknowledge the folks that were on a board and then do the official swearing in of the new board. And then they would leave like issues, points that this board was working on or thought was important. So just keep that in mind, that even after May 6th, there's still a time where some of this work could be done, or at least transition to an incoming group. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that. And then the next agenda item, I think, might roll right into this discussion. So I might add some stuff, some insight on when we get there.
Thank you, Brett. Yeah, the original intent for these agenda items was to have these this old business discussed at a previous meeting, and then follow up with the new business item from today as a direct kind of transition. Any other thoughts, comments, ideas, suggestions, questions? All right, seeing and hearing none, we will now move on to new business. Is there a motion for item 10.1?
I move to discuss item 10.1 ASB Senate Unite Center outreach.
Thank you, Angie. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, with the motion made and seconded, Angie, you can start the discussion, or you can defer to the chair if you wish.
I would like to defer to the chair.
All right, thanks, Angie. So the Unite Center could be an excellent opportunity for everyone to get in touch with community on campus, and I will share their website on the ARC page. So I've already reached out to Pride Center Interim Coordinator Professor Smith, and also the Native American Resource Center Coordinator Professor Jesus Valle. And so this was the Native American Studies Library Bill that I presented a few weeks ago, and that we passed, and we've since followed through on. So I will be bringing a similar bill shortly for the Pride Center Library. They're not looking to expand their library for quite as many resources for students to lend, so this will likely be a smaller advocacy funding bill. But I wanted to encourage that we also have the Black Student Success Center, the Umoja Saku Learning Community, the PRISE Center, and the Puente Project. So these are 4 other areas of the Unite Center, which I was hoping that perhaps different members of this board might be willing to reach out to directly, such as I have with Professor Smith and Professor Valle at the Pride Center and the Native American Resource Center, to ask how we might get involved as a board with what they do. both in terms of outreach to our current student body, as well as any advocacy support that we may be able to provide, whether that's holding an event to get students on campus to be more connected with the center, whether that's something like a library funding bill or any number of other small project ideas that may develop out of those connections. But I wanted to encourage this board to both make those connections with the coordinators in the Unite Center, and also to expand student advocacy by building those relationships. So again, the Black Student Success Center, Mojisaku Learning Community, the PRISE Center, and Puente Project. I will include the links for all of these in the chat.
Sure.
Recognized.
I would be willing to reach out regarding Puente to Kathy Ariano.
Excellent. Thank you, Angie. Would anyone be willing to reach out to the PRISE Center? So the mission of the PRISE Center is to offer holistic support for Asian American and Pacific Islander students at American River College. Promoting kinship for students on campus through dedicated courses, academic counseling, peer mentoring, cultural and social activities, and book assistance.
Sure.
Recognized.
If no one else is willing to do so, I would be more than happy to reach out.
Last call for outreach to the PRISE Center before Angie snaps it up. All right, sounds like it's all you. Thank you, Angie. Appreciate your hard work. All right, we also have Mojisaku and the Black Student Success Center. So the Black Student Success Center's mission is to foster a campus that enthusiastically welcomes, celebrates, and supports Black students as they authentically engage in the ARC experience. Their efforts are designed to connect Black students to the programs, people, and resources that nurture academic and personal growth.
Sure.
Recognized.
I can reach out to that one.
Thank you, Sydney. And we also have the Mojisaku Learning Community. So Mojisaku's mission.
Chair, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you,
I
Dominique.
just, could you just clarify, sorry, exactly, you just wanted us to reach out and I'm not sure, sorry, I kind of missed that part.
No problem. So if you go to the website for each one of these learning communities or different centers within the Unite Center, they'll have contact information for their coordinators. If you could reach out to the coordinator and just identify yourself as a member of Student Senate and ask how we might get involved to support their outreach and their efforts in our campus community, whether that's to hold an event that the Senate might fund so that students can get involved and find out more about what they do, get involved in their student organizations or anything that they have going on. Or if they have other projects that they really require student advocacy support, such as a library funding bill, as an example. This is really open-ended. This is any projects that we might take on to support our student community through the Unite Center.
I'll do that.
Thank you. All right, so to recap, it sounds like Black Student Success Center was Sydney, Mojisaku was Dominique, and then both PRISE Center and Puente is Angie. Do I have that correct?
Sounds correct.
All right, thank you. So I will be asking for updates during board reports at meetings on the 8th and subsequent meetings in hopes that perhaps bills may be presented throughout the remainder of the month. We have only a few weeks left of service together, and I would like to encourage everyone to just make the most of this time in service to our student colleagues. So any other thoughts, questions, or comments? Brett, I see your hand. You can go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, a couple things. If you can't find on the website or Google who to contact for each of these, reach out to me. I can put you in contact with them. A little insight, I used to work in what's now called the Unite Center, in the hub is what it used to be called. And I worked for the group called Unite. That was my first job in Los Rios. So I'd like to think I'm pretty well connected with the folks that are running these programs. And I just wanted to say to Angie's point earlier, you're right, during this virtual world and the pandemic, it's hard to connect students to communities, to resources. And the beauty of like the hub, I'm sorry, I'm gonna call it the hub because that's just how I know it, the Unite Center. The beauty of it was that all those communities were there on ground and you could see other communities, events, programming, students, and you got that connection. And that's just really hard to replicate in this Zoom world because each program now is doing its own thing and you're not always exposed to it. And so, like I said, that's almost impossible to replicate. So hopefully as you reach out to these folks, and we're trying to get back on ground in some way, how Senate or CAEB can help with that, I think is a win-win for everyone. So yeah, if you need help reaching out to them, you can't find someone or they're not getting back to you, let me know. I think I have everyone's advisor's number saved in my phone. I can text them and just say, hey, watch out, there's gonna be email coming. I'm happy to help. This is important. And like Angie's experience is not there's thousands of other students that are probably feeling that same way. So, and most students don't even know these programs exist. So that's the other big piece. And so how can we help advocate for these students and for these programs to thrive? So just thought I'd throw that out there and thank you all for reaching out to them. Don't sleep on that. Try to at least do something today, tomorrow, Monday, because they're also very busy. So if you don't hear back from them right away, give them some time, but I'm happy to help. So thanks.
Thank you so much for that support, Britt. And yeah, I missed that pre-pandemic experience of walking through the student center and just seeing some of the A-frame signs outside, celebrating student achievements, projects, welcoming people to events. I'm really looking forward to getting that going again at the student center. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, ideas? All right, thanks again, everyone. We will now move on to committee reports. Don't believe we've had any committees meet recently. Give you a chance to correct me if I'm mistaken. Before we move on to board member reports and announcements. So are there any members of the board who wish to make a report or share an announcement at this time?
Chair.
Recognized.
There will be an American River Review information session that is being held on Monday at 2 p.m. It's going to be virtual and run by the Language and People Homebase. And we're just going to be talking about the American River Review, what you can do to sign up, and what kind of experience you can have on in that class.
Sorry, Angie, you said that was next Monday?
That is Monday the 4th. So this coming Monday.
Thank you so much. Any other board member reports or announcements, things clubs are doing, other student organizations on campus? field trips that have been happening, interesting things from class. Anything at all?
Chair, sorry.
Recognize, go ahead.
There's a biotechnology conference happening in 2 weeks in Oakland that was postponed for 2 years because of the pandemic. There might still be applications available, but a bunch of STEM students are gonna go do that during spring break. I know, that's kind of exciting, I guess, like a field trip. That's all I got.
Thank you, Dominique. Oh, I noticed Brianna shared in the chat that the STEM Homebase is closed until further notice. I had also heard that, but it sounds like maybe Brett has an update.
Yeah, so the STEM Homebase, the staff went to a conference and they had some staffing issues, so they had to close a couple days last week. But they're back normal hours. I texted the dean just to confirm that. So they're back to their regularly scheduled hours. So feel free to drop in there and say what's up.
Thank you, Brett. And I also noticed Brianna shared in the chat that the Oak Cafe is now open on Wednesdays. I believe that's the Cafe Bakery. So definitely check them out. They've got good stuff. Oh, and it sounds like SHIP has a barbecue coming up on April 28th. It's excellent. CAEB meeting next Tuesday at 10:30. Any other board member reports or announcements? So I suppose I can share something that I forgot to share during Chair's message. So last Friday I was out because my marine biology class went to the Bay Model in Sausalito, which was really cool. I had never been there. I also did a little bit of tide pulling at the Marin Headlands. Earlier in the semester, I missed 2 meetings because I had lab meetings in preparation for this class's field trips to the coast. I will be out again on the 22nd for a 3-day camp trip for that class, and Director of Finance Brianna Huynh will be chairing that meeting. So thank you, Brianna. Any other board member reports or announcements? All right. Seeing and hearing none, we will now move on to public comment. This time is reserved for members of the public to address the ASB Senate on issues not already appearing on the agenda. A limit of 2 minutes per speaker shall be observed with a maximum of 4 minutes per topic. No discussion is allotted on public comment. The law does not permit any action to be taken or extended discussion of any items not on the agenda. The ASB Senate may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed. However, for further information, please contact the ASB Senate President for the item of discussion to be placed on a future agenda. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment? Seeing and hearing none, if there are no objections, this meeting will be adjourned at 11:19 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Seeing and hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.